Hey listeners, Nat here. Welcome back to Cheers with Nat, the podcast dedicated to cheering on women in drinks. For this episode, we're digging into the archives. You're going to hear from a guest from the first season of Beer with Nat, who I initially recorded with way back in December 2018. Today's guest is drinks educator, author, and founder of the School of Booze, Jane Peyton. We'll start by hearing what Jane has been up to over the past 8 years. Wow. Then we'll rerun our initial conversation. For these intros, I've asked each guest to tell me what's changed since we last chatted, what keeps them grounded outside of work, and who they might like to share a drink with. Let's listen in.
Hello, Nat. Thanks for asking me to give you some updates on my career since we spoke in 2019. So you asked how things had changed career-wise. The pandemic, like many people, changed the focus for my business. So I moved it away from hosting in-person events and training, doing a lot more work online. I wrote some courses for beer, cider and wine, which people could download. I've also been busy writing, and since 2019, I've published 7 non-fiction books, titles about gin, wine, cocktails, cider and beer. Plus, I've published 2 novels written under a pen name, B.A. Summer, and I'm currently editing in the editing stage of a 3rd novel. You also asked me, what do I do outside of work to keep me grounded? I volunteer with a befriending organisation, so I spend a lot of time with elderly people and I give them a bit of company, and that definitely keeps me grounded. In terms of a celebrity I'd like to have a drink with, I'd like to go to the pub with Cate Blanchett. She's really amusing and playful, and she's got wide interests and is a very good conversationalist. Cheers!
Well, Jane has certainly been keeping busy, huh? Cranking out more than a book a year? How impressive. I'll include a link to her website in the show notes so you can check out all of her latest work. Returning to our initial recording from December 2018, you'll hear how a Venn diagram helped Jane to discover her perfect career path, what it took to set a Guinness World Record, the aspect of her work she's most proud of, and a whole lot more. It's time for a cheers and a chat with Jane Peyton. Here she is.
Oh, best noise ever. Now, I've brought a beer by Brewster's Brewing Company from Grantham. Sarah Barton is a friend of mine, and Sarah was one of the first women, if not the first woman, to open her own brewery and be the brewer as well. Mm-hmm. She'd worked for multinational companies, studied brewing at Heriot-Watt University, started her own business in about 1995, Brewster's Brewing Company. Mm-hmm. And she's been such an inspiration to me and many other women as well, because she's given them a chance to brew. First time I met her, I said to her, I'd love to brew a beer. So she said, come and brew one with me.
Oh,
so I've brewed
great.
several beers with her. I can't remember how many I've actually done with her, but several. Mm-hmm. And the beer that we're drinking is a beer that we brewed for Beer Day Britain. That's National Beer Day, which I instigated. And each year we do a different iteration of Britannia's brew. For this particular beer, we asked Stu McKinley from Yeasty Boys if he would come and collaborate with us and brew a beer that he thought was a good idea based on our Britannia's brew. So he tweaked it slightly and he added Earl Grey tea.
Okay. Similar or inspired by their Earl Grey IPA.
Exactly, the Gunnamatta IPA.
Yep.
And New Zealand hops. So Sarah Brewsters are now doing this beer as Bergamot Butte, so it's part of their main range now. Now, I love their beers because they're always absolutely beautifully balanced, and Sarah loves malt, she loves hops, and she lets both shine through.
Yeah, so we're not just gonna play one against the other, they work together in this.
Exactly, and just the balance of all her beers, and they're so drinkable. They've got real second glass drinkability factor on all her beers. So I'm a huge fan, and I thought that we'd have a little taste of this. So cheers!
The nose is beautiful. It's very perfumey. And then those hops play really nicely with the bergamot as well.
Oh, it's delicious. And the tea is Darjeeling Earl Grey, so it's the best.
Only the finest for us. Thank you, Jane.
Absolutely.
From preparing to chat with you, I literally have a list as long as my arm
Of all of the many hats that you wear and the different roles that you hold within the beer industry, but I wanted to ask it in a different way. If you were at an event, it can't be an industry event in the beer industry because everyone knows you in the beer industry, but say someone came up to you and asked you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer?
I say to them that I've founded a business called the School of Booze and that I'm a drinks educator, and I also produce and host events. I write about alcohol, I advocate for it, I broadcast about it, consult, train, all sorts of things. But basically, I suppose in a nutshell or in a beer glass or a wine glass, it's education, enlightenment and entertainment.
I love that. That is a really great nutshell. I thought the first question you should say back to them is, how much time do you have? Here's the list. So yeah, okay, I think my list is pretty apt. You're an award-winning drinks educator, author, speaker, broadcaster, tour guide, and you run your own business, the School of Booze, which you mentioned, which you founded back in 2008 to do training, consultancy, and corporate events. So what is a day in the life like for you in your role?
One of the wonderful things about my job is that no one day is the same. Mm-hmm. And I love it that way because I don't like repetition and repetitive activities, which is why I could never actually be a brewer, because you have to do the same thing every single time. You can't cut any corners and you can't really break the rules.
That's
the beer will tell you and dictate to you when it's ready. Today, for instance, I got up really early and I went into London and did some consultancy for a international beer brand on beer glass shapes. So they were interested in designing new glassware. So I was part of a team that was giving them the advice on what glassware might work best.
Very cool.
The thing about glassware is that there are many reasons for having a particular type of glass. It can enhance the drink. It can spoil it, it can make it look amazing, it can change the perception of what you're drinking. Depends who your market is. So if you're going for a higher end market, you may want to go for a particular type of glass. If you're going mainstream, then you've got to be really conscious of who's going to be drinking that. So there's all these factors. So it's absolutely fascinating. And I was with designers and marketeers and mixologists and all sorts of different people. And we were just going through different versions of the glassware with the beers and seeing how they went. I've come to you today. This evening I'm doing a business networking event. Tomorrow I'm doing a radio interview, and then I've got a business meeting, and then I'm having drinks with somebody in Brighton, a drinks journalist. So that's fairly typical.
Exciting, yeah. So
I do some work as well.
Yeah, right.
Sounds like I'm not doing any work at all, but...
So every day is very varied, but
Yes.
it kind of takes on all those different roles, as you said, to focus on education, entertainment, and enlightenment. I really like that. So it's in the name of the business, and it's very clear from all of the certifications that you've achieved, which we'll come back to, that education is really important to you. Why is that? Why education?
I love learning myself anyway, and life, I think, is a constant learning opportunity. And I wanted to be a teacher when I was younger.
Okay.
And if my school teachers now knew what I did for a living, they might be surprised. I don't know. But yes, so I'm a teacher at heart. I love teaching. I love learning myself. And I wanted to do something with my work that I enjoyed, that I would be good at. So I combined all the different jobs I've done throughout my career and made a Venn diagram, actually. And Venn diagrams are very useful because the middle of it...
To find out where the overlap is.
Exactly,
Oh,
and the
that's
overlap
fantastic.
was pubs, drink, and speaking about alcohol.
And when did you do that? So you started School of Booze in 2008. Was that right before you decided to start School of Booze, or was this earlier on? What did you do before the School of Booze?
I was doing wine, beer and cider tasting, but I didn't have a brand before then.
Okay.
So for about 3 years previous to the School of Booze, I was doing it as Jane Peyton.
Okay.
And then I decided...
Which you still are, but now
Which I
you're
still am.
the principal of the School of Booze.
Because I do corporate events, it would have more credibility to be a proper company. So that's why I decided to have a brand. It's much easier to market a brand than it is to market a person.
Okay.
So that's why I chose to have a brand name.
Okay, that's a great point. So how long had you been doing the tastings and drinks education?
Oh, in total for about 14 years now, professionally, but I've been doing it unprofessionally for some time before that.
And what was your previous work before you came to the beer industry?
I worked as a producer of TV documentaries in America. I was doing natural history documentaries
Oh my
for
goodness.
National Geographic and Discovery and BBC Bristol Wildlife collaborations in Los Angeles. I worked for National Geographic TV.
Wow, that's quite a change from beer. So how did you end up where you are now?
Because
How did you end up back here in the UK as well?
Well, I wasn't going to be there forever, and then I'd had as many work permits that I could have, and it meant either becoming a citizen, which I didn't want to be, or getting a green card, which is quite tricky, or coming back to England. And I'd never intended to live there permanently anyway, so I thought it was a really good time to come back. Plus I'd been commissioned to write a book about London, so I was coming back anyway to do the book. And I thought, well, I'll just come back permanently. So I came back, and the first thing I did after arriving at Heathrow, friends picked me up at the airport, and I said, can we go to the pub? And I had a pint of London Pride minutes after touching down at a local pub.
Yeah.
And then I knew I was home.
Oh, and is that just because you felt there isn't that same pub culture in the States? I grew up there. I know it's very different, the way that we drink here versus how people drink in the States. Were you missing the idea of the pub?
Oh, absolutely. When people said to me, what do you miss about living in England? I'd say family, friends, the shipping forecast on Radio 4, and pubs. Not in that order, by the way. Pubs, family, friends. Yes, pubs, very important to me. British beer, cask ale, particularly. Now, I lived there before the craft beer revolution, so the opportunities for drinking beer in LA were very minimal for drinking decent beer anyway.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I had to drink sparkling wine, and so consequently everybody thought that every English person just drinks fizz all the time.
Yeah.
Plus Ab Fab was on the telly, so all they saw was Patsy and Adina.
You were fitting it exactly.
Drinking bolly, so they just thought we were just a nation of bolly drinkers.
And then when you came back here, did you try and find work in the same area and doing video production? Or did you know then you wanted to move your career somewhere else?
I did do some television work when I came back. I didn't enjoy it because it meant working with hosts.
Okay.
And I hadn't worked with what they call talent before. I'd worked with animals and natural phenomena and nature. But talent was a different
beast
completely.
Things that don't talk back is what you were working with previously.
Basically.
Okay.
I didn't enjoy working with talent, and television is all about talent now. So unless you're David Attenborough doing those wonderful dynasties and Planet Earth and programs like that, they're very dependent on talent, which means having to deal with people's egos and needs and hissy fits and all that sort of thing. So I stopped working in television, started writing for newspapers and magazines, wrote several books, decided that I wanted my own business and I wanted to work in something that I was good at, which is when I did my Venn diagram of what I liked, what my skills were. Now, as a producer of TV documentaries, those are transferable skills. So as a producer, you can produce events. Now, an earlier career, I'd worked in public relations, and we used to do a lot of events, produce events, which I did do. So I had production skills in that way. I'd always been somebody who could speak confidently and speak in front of a group. So that was something that I could do at the School of Booze. I could teach, I could enthuse, I could go to the pub, I could write.
Check. You've got it all.
Check. So all those things in the Venn diagram told me I had to do the School of Booze.
Let's talk a little bit more about some of the early work that you did and about some of the books that you've written.
The first book I was commissioned to write was called Looking Up in London. It's a treasure hunt of architectural features above eye level. Most people don't look up when they walk down a street, but if you do look up, then you see a completely different urban landscape. You can often see the history of that city or that town by looking above eye level. You can see how it developed. Oh, that's a Georgian feature on that building. Oh, that's Victorian. Oh, that's Baroque. That's Art Nouveau. Oh, that's arts and crafts. So you can see the development and the history of the city. You often see really great signs as well.
So why were you commissioned to write that? What was your experience with architecture?
Well, I had no connection with architecture at all. I just enjoy architecture from a layperson's point of view. It took me 12 years to get the book commissioned, by the way.
Wow.
And the reason it took so long wasn't because it wasn't a good idea, and that's what we should all remember about anything, that just because somebody says no doesn't mean to say it's a bad idea. It's just they're not the right people for that particular idea.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So I had that in my psyche all the time with all the rejection letters that I got. And the big problem was that it didn't fit into any boxes that they could market. Was it a tourist book? Was it an architecture book? It was a hybrid. Anyway, I kept going and I kept sending it to architecture lists from books. I got some really snooty responses back, which are quite funny if I looked back at them.
Yeah, if you were to read it now.
Yes.
Look where I am now.
But anyway, I did get the book commissioned finally, and it was a book of photos and a little treasure hunt around London. Great fun to do. And then I did the same version of the book, Looking Up in Edinburgh, same publisher. And then they asked me if I would write a book in a format that they already had. So it was a interior design series that they had, and they wanted me to write about food shops. And what they'd liked about my writing for Looking Up in London was that it was written in an accessible way that a consumer could understand and enjoy, rather than in architectural vernacular. So I wrote a book. It was a coffee table book of the design of food shops around the world. And the way it was broken down was that there were 5 sections. So they wanted me to write my own treatment. How would I break those sections up? What would the sections contain? So I decided, because food is something that's so fundamental to us, that food, we use our intuition and psychology when we're shopping for food, whether we know it or not. So I decided that I'd approach it from the psychology of food shopping.
Oh, fascinating. And was this supermarkets, like our standard supermarkets, or all these different types of, more high-end delis?
It was all of those, but they had to be beautiful because it was for architects and designers.
Oh, okay.
So they had to be absolutely amazing interiors. Now, this was before the foodie revolution happened in this country, so there weren't as many really great food shops. Now, I wanted them to also have really good food as well, so it was quite tricky getting enough really high quality. Yes, exactly. But I was really pleased with how the book came out. And I also learned a lot about the psychology of colour. Now, the colour of food shops is really important as well. You will very rarely see blue in a food shop.
Okay, why is that?
Because there's no blue food.
Oh,
apart from blue M&Ms, of course.
Yeah, blue raspberry flavoured sweets. Yeah, whatever that is.
So you see a lot of natural colours in food shops.
Okay.
However, red raises the heartbeat and it excites us and it gets our adrenaline going. So red is actually a really good colour, but it's a manipulative colour because it gets people really revved up.
Yep.
And then they'll go shopping, they'll be whizzing around the shop, picking everything off the shelf.
I need it all, I need it now.
And your heartbeat's gone up, so you're really excited. So very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And was this anything that you had known about before, or you learned it along the way?
I learned it along the way.
Yeah, which with your love of education and learning new things, it's quite fitting. You're like, yeah, I'll take on that project. What cool new things can I add to stories to tell later?
Exactly. And then they said, oh, will you do another book? What would you like to write about? And it was the same format as the Fabulous Food Shops.
Yep.
And I went, oh, have you done a pub book?
Ding, ding, ding.
And they hadn't. So I was able to do a coffee table book about pub interiors and design. Again, I had to find out, I had to give a treatment of these 5 sections and how I would treat the subject. So that was fantastic as well. That was my absolute favourite.
That's really fun. So was that your foray then into writing about beer, drinks and pubs?
Yes, it was. And getting to know brewers and thinking, oh,
there's some more stories here to tell.
Maybe I can start a business doing this because I love pubs so much and I love beer and I love wine and cider and drinks and I love the place that alcohol plays in the human society and what an important part of history it's been and how influential and how it connects us around the world. It doesn't matter what your language is or your culture, it's a lingua franca, alcohol is, particularly beer. So it's this connector that humans have. You may be able to smile or wave at somebody, but if you are drinking a libation, then you've got this immediate connection.
You instantly connect. Speaking of that, you are also an expert in the cultural aspects of drinking and drinks history. Was that through doing your research into the next few books that you wrote that you decided to delve into the cultural aspect?
Yes, I did a lot of research into history and what an important part of the human development and civilization it's been, and that was all part of me wanting to learn. And also because I was going to have the School of Booze, and it's not just about educating people about the alcoholic drink in the glass, it's also enthusing them or making them go, wow, when you tell them these incredible facts.
So what did you think the industry was missing when you decided to set up the School of Booze?
School of Booze covers beer, wine, cider. I looked around to see who my competitors were. There were no competitors in beer or cider. And in a way, there still aren't all that many not doing corporate things. Now, there are absolutely loads doing corporate wine tasting, and there still are, and there are even more. If you're doing corporate things, you need to look and act and be a certain way. A lot of my clients are some of the best known brands in the world, international clients, a lot of international banks, legal firms. My first client actually is still a client. Sometimes I go and look at invoice number 1 and it's that international law firm and they're still a client, and that's over 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's a great feeling.
So, yes, so you need to be a certain person, and there was nobody in beer doing that at the time. And certainly not in a company structure anyway. So I thought, well, that's a gap in the market for sure. There was no official training for beer at the time. So the first accreditation I got was the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. Self-taught with beer, because beer was my favourite drink, still is. So self-taught with beer, and then the Beer Academy came along years later, offering the Beer Sommelier accreditation, which I took and passed. Then only recently they started offering cider training, and I've recently become a Pamelier.
The first Pamelier as well.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So, yeah, definite gaps in the market in terms of beer and cider. And in fact, most of the business I get is beer related. So most of my corporate clients want beer related events.
And is there this maybe an unfair perception that I still have, but this idea that at this higher level, maybe it is wine that corporate events want to feature because it is that bit more elevated than beer is. Is that something that you come up against, or have you found that people are just as willing to learn about beer and cider as they are wine?
At the beginning, when I first started, it was more wine. The beer side was coming through a less formal aspect of the corporate entertaining, and it tended more to be the office parties, the get-togethers, the sports and social clubs that wanted things. They weren't entertaining their clients with beer. But that changed when the credit crunch happened, which was not long after my business started, actually. My School of Booze started. And so I stopped getting the champagne events and the wine tasting events, and I started getting many more queries for beer tasting to entertain their clients, because nobody wanted to be seen to be spending a lot of money. And beer is seen as a much
everyman's drink.
Exactly. And it's not fancy schmancy, and price-wise it's manageable. For them, it's all about perception.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
In fact, they were having much more fun with beer, because the thing about beer, you have much better time and you don't get drunk quickly like you do with wine. And when you're doing corporate things, you don't necessarily want to be trolleyed. You want a nice gentle buzz, and you don't want to be photocopying your face, that's for sure. Not while they're there anyway, do it later.
And not while everyone's got social media these days too. How do you feel having the certifications that you have when they came in later have helped your business?
It gives credibility to what you're doing, and it also elevates the beer and the cider. If people see that you can be a professional and have an accreditation in beer and cider, it elevates what beer and cider is, and people will value it more, because they go, oh gosh, I didn't realise you could be a sommelier in beer or in cider. So it starts a conversation for all of us, and you being a beer sommelier and a cicerone as well. People go, oh, what is it? And then it opens a conversation that you can start to educate people and enlighten them, which is fantastic, because we want to share our love, don't we? I think we all do it. We're all advocates, aren't we?
Yeah. And that's another question that I wanted to ask you. I feel that you do a really great job of educating people in a way that is not intimidating. And I know that many of us who are so passionate about something, myself included with beer, we can get really stuck in the weeds, and we're not very good at communicating, or as good as we think we are, because we don't want to dumb anything down, and we get really lost in the details without capturing people's attention. So what have you learned over the years that works best to educate people? Because you seem to do a really great job at it.
Thank you. Just talking simply and giving the simple facts, it doesn't necessarily mean you're patronising somebody just because you're speaking in a simple way and a clear way. And I think it's easy when you know something really well about a subject to forget that
once didn't know all that?
Once didn't know all that. But there's a lot of jargon and there's lots of concepts that aren't easy to understand. And sometimes I speak to brewers and they talk to me in brewing terminology, and I have to listen really carefully, even though I've brewed beers many times and I know how beer works and how to brew it, but their technical language
it's not the language that we speak in.
No. I remember writing something for Beer Magazine, actually. It was about hops, and Dr. Peter Darby, the hop breeder, who I call my hop idol. And he's the world's #1 hop breeder, and he is just a genius, absolute genius. And he's been working on DNA of hops, and he's been working on shortening the time scale that you need to go from...
to bring them to market.
Exactly, from 10 years to 3 years, because of this absolute incredible research that he's done.
Wow.
Now, he gave me all the knowledge on that, and I didn't understand it, and it took me so long to work out what he actually meant and to put it into language that we could all understand.
Yep.
So I think that's it, to put it into easy to understand language.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And then you can really, as you said, enlighten people in a way that they then want to go and learn a bit more themselves, because they've got that base bit of knowledge that they can start to learn more from. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about how you engage even more people, the entire country, in our national beverage, which is beer. You started Beer Day Britain a few years ago. It's a celebration of beer that happens on June 15th every year. Tell me more about where the idea for that came from and how it's grown over the years.
Beer is Britain's national drink and has been for thousands of years. And we do beer really well in this country, and we've got our particular styles. The love of beer was spread around the world largely through British ships, through the Navy, trade or colonisation and exploration. More beer styles developed in Britain, or native to Britain, are brewed around the world than any other country's beers, if that makes sense. So I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
India pale ale, bitter, mild, barley wine, stout, porter, brown ale. First brewed in Britain and now brewed around the world.
That's a great point.
Very much to do with Britain's influence on brewing around the world. So we have this history and heritage. We've got our amazing pubs. We have real ale. We have a vibrant brewing scene here, but we didn't have a National Beer Day. Now there's National Sausage Day.
Come on, why aren't we celebrating beer then? All right, so I take it that's the question you asked yourself and set out to change.
But I was talking to people in the trade, in the beer industry, saying, well, why don't we have a beer day? And I think it's because it's very segmented, the beer industry in this country. There are lots of different trade bodies, and nobody went, oh, well, I'll start one. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, I'll start one, thinking that everyone
else would rally together
around it. Fund it and get behind it. And they didn't. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit there. What I thought was somebody would take it on as a project from that point.
Yep, you would get it started or seeded, and then some other brewer would want to put their name to it.
Or organisation, trade body.
Yep, okay.
And that didn't happen, even though all the industry bodies, all of them, and all the beer advocacy groups, everybody's behind it, everybody supports it.
But no one wants to take ownership.
No. So I've done.
Why do you think that is? Because of the segmentation? Because the difference between big breweries, small breweries, keg, cask?
Could be some of that, but also it's outside people's normal day-to-day work. So they're focusing on the tasks at hand, and it's just something else for them to do.
Okay.
That could be it.
Yeah.
So I started it in 2015, and I chose the date of June the 15th because that's the date that Magna Carta was sealed in 1215. So 2015 was the 800th anniversary of Magna Carta.
That's pretty incredible.
And huge celebrations. So I thought, well, it would be really good to have Beer Day Britain on that hook just for that year, because it will then get more
the press coverage and get it out there. Yep.
Which it did. So I started it with no budget, still have no budget, and just lots of hard work.
Yeah.
And I've got people behind it. You know, I've got brewers supporting it, and every trade body that I just mentioned, and people, you know, millions of people around the country support it. The media support it. So it's got a lot of love and support behind it, and it's up and running now. So 2019 will be the fourth year, or the fifth year. People in the industry said, oh, it's going to take at least 3 years to get going. And it did. And in the fourth year, suddenly it had a life of its own, so it was almost running itself.
Amazing.
So the first 3 years was a lot of cajoling people and encouraging people to get involved. And then suddenly the fourth year came along and it was up and going.
Everybody knew about it. Okay. Oh, it's amazing to see what you've started and see it out in the wild. And
yes.
What can we look forward to for this coming June?
Well, I haven't started thinking yet, but it's on a Saturday this year. Now, it's a moving feast. The first year it happened, it was actually on a Monday. And I did get a lot of stick on social media from people saying things like, what idiot decided to make a National Beer Day on a Monday?
Well,
so at first I was polite.
Could they have just changed the day they signed the Magna Carta? I think that's harder to go back and change 800 years of history. Where's Doctor Who when we need her to go back and edit that?
Exactly. Oh, by the way, ale is mentioned in clause 35 of Magna Carta. That's why I chose the Magna Carta connection. And so, yes, I gave the reasons. And then eventually I just started responding saying, doesn't your mum let you out on a Monday night? Or
go live a little. Go on and have a beer on National Beer Day.
Yes, or well, you don't need to get drunk. Just go out and have one or
half.
two.
Yeah,
have a half.
Exactly.
Or, well, your birthday's on a different day each year and things like that. So when it comes round to a Monday again in 2 years' time, then
you've got all your answers prepared.
Yeah.
Well, you've also accomplished another really fun feat, which I really enjoyed discovering in my research. You are a Guinness World Record holder. So tell me all about the record that you broke in and how that came about.
It was, I think it was in 2015 also, good year, that was an auspicious year. And it was for the Publican Awards, which is run by the Morning Advertiser. It used to be called the Publican Magazine, and it runs this awards. And I think it was the 25th anniversary of the awards, and they wanted to have a big thing that would celebrate that. So they decided they would apply for a Guinness World Record and have the most people doing a beer tasting consecutively. Now, the Guinness organisation needed an accredited beer sommelier to do this.
Oh, and who other than Miss Jane Peyton here?
And I was asked to do it, and it was quite extraordinary to see how slick that organisation is, the Guinness organisation for the world records.
Yeah, they need. How many people had to be there to measure it? And
well, it was in a massive tent, and there were 1,256 who broke the record. So I was hosting it. So there were 1,236, I think it was, record breakers. So we went into the room and we had to walk through a metal detector, like a clicker for
to count all
for the
attendees.
airport.
Okay.
So we would count it in, and then on each table, because it was a dinner, so there were dozens of tables. I think there were probably over 100 tables.
Yeah.
And so there were monitors on each table, and they were watching every single person on that table as they took a drink.
Actually engaged in the activity
So they
to
were
make sure the
counting
record was
them.
broken.
Now, if you walked out if you went back out to the loo or something, then it was null and void. So you had to stay in the room.
Glued to your seats.
Glued, but it went really quickly.
Yeah.
And then I had to give them a script beforehand.
Okay.
Now, I never use a script. I always just talk.
Yeah, because you've got so
talk.
many great stories that you want to impart. Yeah.
But I had to write a script for them, and they had to approve it.
Oh, wow.
And then
Formal
I had to
occasion.
read a formal occasion. Had to read it on an auto cue as well.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So yeah, that was great fun, and
Yeah, that's really incredible.
I've got the poster. I've got a photograph of the poster to prove it.
Amazing. That's really exciting. So you clearly like to take on some big projects in addition to your day-to-day work. What aspect of your job do you enjoy the most, and why?
I really enjoy teaching people who really want to be there. Now, as well as doing events, which are educational events, but the social events, they don't necessarily want to learn much. They just want to have a social occasion.
Yeah, have a drink, have a bit of a chat. Yeah, that's
And
a good
learn
point.
a little bit. But the ones that I really enjoy doing is the brand owners, their staff, and seeing the light go on and giving them the language and the knowledge that they need to sell what they're selling, or to describe it, or to write tasting notes. I love it when you see the light go off.
Yeah, that's a really great feeling to think that you've imparted that knowledge and it's clicked.
Does the light
Whoever
go
has
off or go
received it.
on? Whatever that light does,
Oh,
but I love
hope it
seeing
goes on, but something exciting's happening and you can tell. Okay, so here's my big long list of accomplishments, which is only a small portion because it would take up the whole chat if I was to include them all. In 2014, you were awarded Beer Sommelier of the Year by the British Institute of Innkeeping and the Beer Academy. 2016, you were Imbibe's Drinks Educator of the Year. In 2017, you received an award from the Beer Insider Marketing Awards for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Beer. And then in 2018, you were honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from the all-party parliamentary beer group. That is a pretty incredible list of accolades, and I feel very honored to have you at my kitchen table. So thank you.
Thank you. I must just say also that Annabelle Smith, who's also an amazing beer sommelier and beer educator, she was awarded the same award as well. So she had a lifetime achievement. Yes.
Two incredible ladies.
I know, we're both from Yorkshire as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's really exciting.
And I think we trained in the same class doing our beer sommelier.
Yeah.
So we've
quite early on.
Our careers have mirrored each other in several ways, because Annabelle's also been the drinks educator of the year at Imbibe.
Oh, that's
last
so exciting.
Year, I think. Yeah.
Girl power. So of that list, it doesn't have to be of that list, but those are just a few examples. What accomplishment or piece of work are you most proud of?
Well, the all-party parliamentary lifetime achievement was really a lovely surprise, and that was a recognition of the work that I've done outside my daytime work. So these awards are given to people that have gone above and beyond their paid work. So that one was definitely my recognition for Beer Day Britain, which I was really very grateful to receive and very happy. I think the Beer Sommelier of the Year, because it was quite early on in beer having this educational aspect to it, and it was also still early on when not everybody knew about beer. I mean, nowadays there are so many experts in beer. Just looking at Twitter, you don't have to have any education in beer to know a lot about beer nowadays, because it's much more available. I think probably that one, actually. And also my dad was alive, so he was able to see that.
To see that too.
So, yes, and it was one of the first, actually I think it was the first award that I had for my work, and it just felt fantastic that suddenly
people know what you're doing and you're being recognised for it.
And then you think, oh, well, I'm doing a good job then. I've been recognised this way.
Yeah.
And I think it's really good for women to be winning awards as well, particularly in the beer world, because it still is very much dominated by men. I mean, it's getting a lot better. I look at you and the Crafty Beer Girls and the Ladies That Beer and all these social groups and many more beer writers and women who work in beer and brewing particularly. And we need to support each other, and I think we also can mentor each other as well. And winning awards, I think, helps younger women particularly think, oh, great, well, I could do that, and
definitely
I want to do that. So
yeah, to see, oh, she's done it before, and that gives me something to work towards. Yeah, yes. Melissa Cole always says, if you can't see, you can't be. So having you winning those awards is a really great example of letting me know what I can work towards, that sort of thing.
You know, that's such a great saying for everything in life. If you can't see, you can't be. And I want my 18-year-old niece who loves beer to think, oh, I could have a career in beer as well.
And say, oh, that's for me too. It's not just for men. Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And just coming back to the beer that we drink in, the Brewster's beer, Sarah Barton started off an organisation called Project Venus, which was the women brewers of Britain and Ireland, actually, getting together and collaborating. Now, that was a professional thing for professional brewers, but having done that, she's really inspired other women, because she's invited women to come and brew with them, or just been a real inspiration. Sophie Durand as well, brewer, such an inspiration. She started off International Collaboration Women's Brew Day. Have you been to Jaeger and done one with her?
Yep.
Well, you know, on the first one, which must have been 4 or 5 years ago, we brewed it with Sophie at Brentwood Brewery, where Sophie was working at the time, head brewer, and Jaeger was brewing the beers for Wildcard at Brentwood Brewery.
Yep.
So Jaeger was there on the first one that we did. That has gone from a handful of women in Britain
to all around the world now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's incredible to see what people can create.
You know, Sarah Barton, Sophie Durand, who, by the way, incidentally, both of them helped me get Beer Day Britain off the ground as well. Those two are just amazing mentors. They make incredible beer, and they're giving, and they're real inspiration.
Oh, that's so lovely. Well, I could talk to you forever, I think. But being mindful of time, I have one last question for you, which is, what do you enjoy most about being a part of the beer industry?
It's such a social and convivial, collegiate sort of business. And every time I go to any beer industry events, I just have a really good time. And I genuinely like the people there. Now, most of them are competitors, or they're maybe working for a company that I don't have any connection with professionally, but there's still this friendly nature to it all. It's a really good industry to be in, I think, and I think it must be fairly unusual, because I can't think of many other industries that brewers and their competition help each other.
Yeah, and actually enjoy each other's company and want to learn from each other and teach each other and share resources on occasion as well.
And just before we go, I would say that beer is the unending conversation. If you're talking to somebody who loves beer, that conversation is never going to end.
That's a very good point. That's why it's so difficult to leave any event with anyone who loves beer. You're like, oh, one more thing. Okay, well, before I say one more thing, I just want to say thank you so much, Jane. That was so lovely. I really could talk to you forever. So thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. And it's lovely to sit at your kitchen table, drink beer, and chat about beer as well.
Well, that was a fun little trip down memory lane. As I said the first time this episode aired, I really enjoyed hearing Jane celebrate so many other wonderful women in beer throughout our conversation, including another past guest you're going to get to hear from again soon. I'll be back with the next Blast from the Past and Where Are They Now episode next week. Thanks, as always, for listening. Cheers!